Oh, hey, y'all, just catching up on my Sethisms here. Say, I think we can safely say that the world has seemed, shall we say, a bit chaotic at times. The earth itself has literally seemed to be burning down for at least several decades now. Wars, well, those aren't anything new. Natural disaster, it threatens the world and has been threatening the world for more decades than most of us have even been alive. But for many of us, for many of us, we can look back at days of calm assurance where we were oh so confident that despite whatever the headlines may bring, our God was in control. We truly, so we thought, had nothing to fear, and we slept well at night, knowing that nothing could touch us outside of his plan. But then we found ourselves free of belief in a simply unbelievable God, free to accept reality as it appears, free to live life reasonably on our own terms. All great things, yes, to be sure, but also free of a God whom we were convinced had all the world's chaos quietly under control. And with freedom from that God, freedom from the hope that tomorrow might be even a little less messed up than it is today. And that can be tough to lose, especially in times of global, political, and even just flat out natural chaos such as these. These can be worrying times, to say the least. And what are a bunch of former believers such as us ever to do? Where does our hope come from? From political leaders? From science? Maybe from each other? Or maybe just from raw dog human optimism? If these are worries that you have had, and if you're also not sure where to turn in the midst of all this chaos, then turn here. Let's talk, let's discuss, let's navigate these roads together. So call in and share with us. Share your journey, share your challenges with navigating hopelessness once God is gone, or with pretty much anything else you're wrestling through here tonight. Please do keep in mind that your boots on the ground challenges here live in real time after leaving the faith, those challenges, those calls will always be prioritized. So that we, so that you, so that me, so that our amazing co-host here tonight, so that we might partner up and find our way together. The number is on the screen here, folks, 98 4400 5656, because the Life After Faith live call-in show, yeah, that starts in 3, 2, 1, now. And joining me here tonight, the man who really needs no introduction around these parts, former evangelical, former Christian broadcaster turned creator and host of the Thinking Atheist, arguably the most well-known atheist podcast and content platform in the world. We could go on at length about his books, his humor, his heart. Instead, we'll just shut the hell up and declare him to be our new God. Please join me in welcoming, folks, the legend himself, Seth Andrews.
There is simply no way to follow up. There's simply no way to live up to whatever just happened. But thanks for inviting me to play along, Drew. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And hey, you earned every one of those accolades and so many more. So thank you for making time to join us. And
I like to compensate.
I think we're going to have some fun tonight.
With lack of substance, I just overcompensate with style, so nobody knows the difference. You know, if you're smooth, people don't really, understand that you're a shallow puddle, right? It's the shallow puddles that make the most noise. So that's what I do. But thanks for having me, man. It's good to see you.
Oh, it is good to have you. And yeah, seriously. I mean, right there. Folks, he's humble too, okay? And humility along with it all. So
Stop. Just stop.
I don't know though, Seth. Last week it was shared that some folks may feel triggered by the word humility following how it was beat into them in their faith-filled days. What are your thoughts? You embody it so
I mean,
perfectly.
if you're triggered by the word humility, I mean, that's a, I don't. I myself think we are told to be humble, but humble in the faith there's a lot of baggage there. You know about that, right?
Yeah.
Where it's often an attack on identity. Be
Mm.
humble essentially, in many cases, means submit. Um,
Yes.
don't give yourself too much worth. Don't trust your own mind.
Mm.
Understand that
Mm.
you are a wretch. There is no one worthy, no, not one. Humble yourself before God. So when they say
Mm.
be humble, often it's part of a sentence. And even if they don't say the rest of it out loud, but I get it. I mean, I like the idea of not walking around being super proud, and we've all been around egomaniacs, and they're no fun. And
Mm.
I think, yeah, I like confidence. Like, if you're a
Mm.
confident person, you can also be tremendously humble. It's like when you know someone who is a confident and competent musician, and they play well, and maybe they perform on stage, but they always know that there's somebody better. And they always know that they're privileged to be able to do what they do. And they have it all in perspective. But, it's the cocky ones. Those are the ones you just want to grab by the shoulders and shake. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And coming out of FM radio, I mean, there was ego everywhere. These
Mm.
guys walk down the hall and they're all kind of out trying to perform each other. We call them pukers because when you say a sentence, you punch every consonant because that's what radio guys are supposed to sound like. And they would literally puff their chest out and try to out ego each other. And I was done with those guys after about 10 minutes. So anyway, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. Yeah.
So were you a better puker while you were still in the faith?
When I first started in radio, I was just a kid. I was 22, and I had this idea of what DJs were supposed to sound like, and this is common. So
Mm.
when
Mm.
you get in, and I see this in the podcast verse quite a bit. There are people, and they want to be professional, they want to be polished, and I think that's terrific. But what happens is you push that to a point where you sound inauthentic. And
Mm.
so you are kind of talking like you just came out of the DJ machine. And how are you doing today? Great to see you, blah, blah, blah. And you also sound like you could be easily replaced with 1,000 other guys that sound just like that. But my first few years on the air, I was that guy, you know.
Yeah.
72 degrees, beautiful day in Tulsa. Don't forget to be listening to the secret song tomorrow morning at 7:20, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was close. And it was after a few years, I finally calmed down, and I thought, you are allowed to have a personality of your own, right? So I found a happy medium between being able to communicate like a pro, but to be authentic, and to find a humanity within it. And it's imperfect, but I mean, I've been doing it for 36 years, 38 years. And so, I kind of found my vibe. So, but it's a balance. I want to make sure that people's time isn't wasted, but I also want to make sure they don't feel like they're listening to bad AI. So,
Yes.
yeah. But
Oh
yeah, I was a
man.
puker in the early days. I was pretty bad. I was a young gun, man. I was going to be a DJ for Jesus, man. Rock for the rock, man.
So now I gotta know. I gotta know though. What was your favorite band? Who did you love to play?
Well, I was raised in Christian music. I was one of these guys I was so cocky about the fact that I didn't listen to the world's music, man, even though I kind of did. But I really embraced the early days of CCM, contemporary Christian music. It really kind of kicked off in the late 60s, started to take off in the 70s, but it was in the 80s that we saw Phil Keaggy. and we saw
Yes.
Petra, and we saw a lot of those early bands, and we were like, man, they're rocking for Jesus. And so I was a huge Petra fan. I still have a soft spot for Petra's Not of This World album. I saw him second row in concert, I don't know how many times, and I'm out there like, yeah, and I'm wearing the t-shirts, you know. Back then, you had to wait outside all night for tickets outside of a bookstore, waiting for the door to open the next morning for the big bands. Yeah. So we're out there with sleeping bags and 35 degrees, and we're, you know, we don't have cell phones, we got nothing, so we're just keeping each other company. And then at 9 a.m. the next morning, the door opens and you go in and you got your tickets. And then you waited 6 months to see Petra. And, you know, the Resurrection Band. I had Amy Grant's first cassette.
Res Band. Yeah.
Resurrection Band was big for me. But, you know, there was a quality problem, which was at the time, we took that bug and made it a feature because what we thought were, we don't have the budget. You know, Sony hasn't come in, and Columbia and EMI, and we don't have those big bucks. We're David against Goliath. And we know we're recording this stuff on a shoestring in somebody's basement for about $3. And there was that helped us to kind of take it personally. So we forgave a lot of the flaws in early Christian music because it was kind of ours. Like it was in our pocket and it made us feel good, and it was all about our faith. And of course, now when I look back and watch some of the old Christian music videos, oh, it's harsh, dude. Cringe.
Oh, wild.
Way up. I mean, essentially, they went out to a field and just spun somebody around with their arms in the air and tears in their eyes for 3 minutes, and you had a Christian music video. It was sad. It was sad. Oh. So, but yeah, I've got, you know, they say the music you listen to when you are a teenager is often the music that you are most fond of for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I can't connect to the message of Christian music, but there are a few songs that when they come on, they take me back to a really wonderful time in my life. You know, I mean, people like to say, well, your religious years were wasted. You were lied to. It sucked. Or do you have regrets? Well, I have a lot of regrets, but I also have a lot of fond memories from those days, and I still hold on to those. So.
Absolutely. We've got, I'll just say real quick, I was a DC Talk guy. I was more 90s than
I was there.
I never quite got with Petra, though I did listen to them, White Heart, but DC Talk and Jars of Clay. And so by then you might have already even been out of the Christian.
No. I saw DC Talk open for Michael W. Smith at the Mabee Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then I saw them headline shortly after that. Jars of Clay was huge. And we used to play them on another station that I work for, which was more alternative, called Live 101.5. And we liked them because they had crossover appeal. So Christian radios would play them, but they also got play on like secular stations, which was the holy grail for us.
Caveman's call.
Because we thought, hey, you know, the world is listening to Christian music, and it validated us. And we felt like it was kind of a victory. Amy Grant got crossover play and some others. We thought that was a win-win, you know?
Yeah. Well, hey, we have Aunt Jer here in the comments. Oh, I waited too long. There we go. Aunt Jer is back. And we've got first concert was second chapter of Acts. I didn't know them well, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So that's fun. There.
I had Matthew Ward's solo album. He was a guy who had a 4-octave tenor voice. And he was the male voice of second chapter of Acts. They had a real 60s vibe. They had a hippie vibe about them, but I had their album. I had the cassette, and I may have had them on vinyl back in the day. That takes me back. Second chapter of Acts. Yeah.
Oh, fun. Well, hey, Seth, of course, it's great to have you on. Folks, everybody, thank you so much. Those in the chat, those watching live, those watching after, love looking into the future. Seriously, thank you all for joining. I am really excited about all that we have planned for tonight and for our conversation and just to see where the calls take us. Do want to wish everyone an amazing Pride Month, of course. And I was at my first festival this past weekend in a whole other country and looking forward to more coming up here. Do want to remind everyone and confirm. Sometimes we get ooh. Sometimes we get questions. We get questions where people will chat in hours before the show's even started asking about the bullshit Bible verse of the week. And yes, we are once again, as always, even on this 10th inceptatory session, doing bullshit Bible verse of the week. That will be around the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Central. Stay tuned for that. And I'll say this, folks. This week's verse might have something to do with, shall we say, snakes. Okay, drop your guesses on what you think the bullshit Bible verse of the might be. Drop that in the chat. And the first person to successfully guess the bullshit Bible verse of the week about snakes, you win 10 extra heretic points. So go ahead and start scrambling with that now. And let's see. Let's see. We might just, Seth, we might just have a caller already. It might be somebody almost as cool as you calling in to share with us a little bit about some exciting work that they've been doing here in the secular community. Before we start taking calls, though, I do just want to remind folks. Okay, so yes, tonight's featured conversation is about finding a sense of, I don't even know if hope's the right word. Is that word triggering? I know some people do find the word hope itself triggering. Is there a way to shake the hopelessness after faith, or have we already done it? Folks, share in the chat. Is life more hopeless or more hopeful after leaving the faith? What have you found? Share it in the chat. More hopeful or more hopeless after leaving the faith? And call in, share with us. Just a quick reminder, folks, an important reminder that this show, this series, Life After Faith, it offers personal perspectives and coaching style conversations. But this show is not a substitute for licensed professional therapy. For that, I would encourage you to go where I found my professional licensed therapist, and that is with the Secular Therapy Project. You can find them, check them out at seculartherapy.org. And for a treasure trove of other resources and tools to help you navigate life after faith, hopefully this show is a pretty good tool. But if you're looking for other ones, always check out Recovering from Religion, a sister organization of the Secular Therapy Project, and they can be found at recoveringfromreligion.org. So folks, in case you weren't sure, the lines are open, folks, and we would love for you to call in. Again, any and all boots on the ground challenges in live time, in real time, as you're navigating your own life after faith. Those will always be prioritized above anything else. Call in, share, discuss. Let's challenge our way through life together. That number is 98-4400-5656, or call in through the web link. That said, Seth, Mr. Seth, the God of secularism himself.
Yes, Tom.
What do you think? Should we go ahead and take this first caller and see what,
see
what he's on about?
Yeah.
Okay. So here I am. Oh. Okay. So I'm seeing right now, Daryl, are you by chance on with us live already?
I am live right now, yes.
Okay. So, perfect. Daryl, we brought you in as an actual host rather than a caller. And I want you to know the reason for that. The reason for that is because you basically are the third host tonight. And so there's no need to push a big green button because you are in live, sitting in the chairs with us. And brother, it's so good.
Okay.
Those who don't know, Dr. Daryl Ray calling in, pronouns are he, him, identifying as an atheist, calling out of the one and only Kansas City. Well, or is there two? Wanting to chat with us about secular leadership. Take it away, Dr. Ray.
Well, first of all, I got to say, I got to do a little humble bragging here with Seth now. Little humble bragging. I am the high priest of the Church of Life Gedimon, so you know that, right?
Well, I would attend that worship service and probably put something in the plate for that. So all hail.
All
brother.
right.
All hail.
Well, that's cool. Anyway, you guys, I like that humble discussion you had to begin with. And I want to say something. You and I haven't talked about this Drew, but I am loving this program. I think there's been a niche for this for a long time, and I'm glad you're taking up the what do they call it in religion? Taking up the sword. All right. Thanks for taking up the sword.
Well, brother, I appreciate
Anyway.
you, and thank you for your support and your enthusiasm. And we're just grateful for all that you do with your many endeavors and recovering from religion and all the other incredible work you've done. So absolutely. But share with us what's on your mind. You have some exciting stuff that you've been doing as of late.
Yeah, I do. So I've got a question. Seth, did you ever go through leadership training in your church?
I did.
Drew, did you ever go through leadership training in your church?
Oh, yes. Well, in the church, I was usually the one leading it, but yes.
Okay.
A little bit, not much training for many years. Yeah.
I got into the secular movement about 25 years ago, and I started asking questions and looking at groups, and I realized that about 13 years ago, I started thinking we need training in the secular world. We don't have any training, and every church on the planet's got a training for their leadership. And that's when I started 13 years ago. I did a few workshops and stuff, but my career had been training leadership in corporate America for 40 years, almost 40 years. And so it gave me the idea we need to catch up with the religious. They're doing really good at training people how to lead, and we don't have anything like that. There's no equivalent within the secular world. So what I'm calling in tonight is to talk to you guys about a new initiative we started in January called the Institute for Secular Leadership, in which we are training new, upcoming, or old secular leaders of one kind or another, whether they're people that want to be on secular boards at the local humanist group or a international executive. We don't care. We're here to teach the next generation of leaders. And if we don't do that, the churches are going to do it. And they're beating us at the leadership development piece. So that's what I'm excited about. I started Recover from Religion 17 years ago. I started Secular Therapy Project 13 years ago, and I took a little hiatus to get those two things going, but they're both doing really well, and they don't need me near as much as they used to. So now I'm off to new and other things. I won't say better, but new and other things. We just graduated our first class Thursday night. First class.
Yes.
For it's called a certification in secular leadership and ethical governance. And we're targeting people who want to be leaders in the secular world. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to give them some really basic skills. This is a course that's based upon my observations of the secular leadership world over the last 25 years. And there's so many things that people can learn. And Seth, I know you've seen this. You've been around about as long as I have. You've seen small groups thrive and grow and then have a conflict between the leadership and die. Or you've seen the leader moves out of town and the whole group dies. And I've seen this over and over and over again, hundreds of groups in my lifetime. I've seen groups that started 25 years ago and they have no more than 25 or 30 members today. Same number they had 10 or 15 years ago. They're not growing. And my question is, why aren't they growing? Why isn't the secular world has grown? 29% of all the people identify as non-religious. And yet I don't see a commensurate increase in the number of people that are joining these groups. And I don't see young people coming. I don't see children being taken care of. There's a lot we can do. And that's why I started the Institute.
Well, and honestly,
I haven't bored you.
Daryl, I mean, it really excites me. So what I don't want anybody to think, I want to make sure that folks watching this now live in the future, that we're connecting these dots in what I think is a really potentially powerful way. I think some folks, especially since I just finished doing a couple of announcements shortly before your call, they might have the impression that this is merely a blurb or an announcement. And please, folks, that is not what this is. And I really mean that. And here's how I mean that is we all watching this show, we all, as a part of this growing community, we are navigating life after faith. Some of us are in the very beginning, very early humble stages. Humble, there's that word again. In the very beginning stages of figuring things out. Others of us have been around for years, a decade, decades plural. Some of us might feel like we've been around for centuries, but we've been doing this, right? And even for those of us fresh out the womb of secularism, we might have the impression, and I know some of us do, that the church was so well organized, because it can be, and now I'm here and this is just such a shit show and I don't know how to find anything and I just feel like I'm out in the abyss. And it might be easy to look around and be like, okay, well, there aren't any support structures for things like leadership development, for things like organizational development. And Daryl, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying, yeah, that's been a weak spot. But right now,
Yep.
in real time, we're seeing that shifting for those who are watching and are interested, thinking they might be ready to do something like this or explore something like this. It's there, but also for some of us, just knowing it exists, I think can be a really helpful thing to just be aware of. I don't know. Is that, or am I coming at this off base, Dr. Ray?
Yeah, it's exactly why I wanted to talk tonight with you guys, because I think there's an opportunity here that people coming into the movement can actually join this and jump in quicker than they could have maybe in the past. Because we're teaching the leadership skills that are going to help you put a group together in Topeka, Kansas, or, San Antonio, or wherever you want to. If you want to join a group or you want to become a board member, you want to become a part of the secular movement, this is a great way to get started.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now I got to tell you, I feel just so starstruck with the great Dr. Daryl Ray on the phone, the great Lord of licentiousness himself, Seth Andrews, here sharing a screen with me. I feel so overwhelmed. And I just, I don't know who, do we have a cage match right now between the two of you? I mean, you're just so, should we do a battle right now on screen? What do we do?
Let me jump in real fast since I haven't talked to you, Daryl, but I know one of the challenges we have with the free thought community, there's a couple. First, a lot of the people who come out of a church culture, they've been burned and they've been manipulated and they're very distrustful of groups. I think there are others who have bought into the myth that gathering as an organization, a group, a community is somehow a religious exercise. We're supposedly independent thinkers, so we're herding cats. I think to emphasize the need for strength in numbers, sharing life, coming together as a community, realizing that church doesn't own that, we're going to have to be in a position where we educate people and tell them it's okay to do what humans do. And that's an uphill battle. I think a lot of free thinkers, they're suspicious of what they would consider to be part of a herd or group think. You and I would just call it community. I don't know if that's part of your model or not.
That is exactly the model we're looking at. We are, in fact, you use the term herding cats. I strongly object to that term, not because you used it, but because atheists and secularists are not cats. We're humans. And we respond to good leadership. And churches have a model of leadership that works for them, but it's very different than what you need to do to lead secular people, skeptics, humanists, atheists, agnostics. People that have those identities are very open to being led, but they want to be led in a different way than a church would. And I also see this, Seth. I see a lot of people coming out of religion and they're looking for community. And they're not finding it, or if they do find it, it's got leadership that leads more like a preacher does, or more like a religious leader does, and people don't respond to that. That actually can tear a community apart when somebody comes in thinking they can lead the local group like a minister did, and I've seen that. Unfortunately, I've seen that happen a few times.
Sure, you get a lot of
in our
groups
movement.
come together with different ideas, but they're not well versed in conflict resolution, constructive
Yep.
conflict. You've got founder syndrome. People get
Yep.
territorial.
Yep.
I think we can be. People like to say that atheist humanists are immune from being superior minded and going in and having bad ideas and not being emotional bags of animated meat. We're not somehow higher primates because we left religion, but we can be knee jerky and nasty and emotional and unhelpful. And I think we have to address that as well if we're going to conquer some of
Yeah.
the problems that the community issue presents us in the free thought movement, right?
Yeah, there's so much we can do, and I'm excited about this. Our response has been phenomenal. We sold 3 of the first 4 classes out. I mean, literally, we limit our classes to 10 because we want people to have a very personal experience, interactive experience. This is not an online course. You can't look at a recording and take a test. You got to come to class. It's by Zoom, but you got to come to class. You got to look other people in the face, and you got to explore and talk about what are the issues and the problems and the skills needed to lead. And it's different for secular people. And we emphasize this throughout the course. Here's the way religions lead, but here's the way you have to lead if you're leading a secular group. And it's a real contrast. But once we get people excited and looking at this, they start realizing, oh, I need these skills if I'm going to start a group in my hometown, or if I'm going to take over a board membership of a local or even national group. My goal, Seth, would be that our goal. I have recruited 2 incredible people, Dr. Sharon McKean and Dr. Katie Grant. You may recognize Katie Grant's name. She's the president of Camp Quest. And they have come on board to help me put this all together. Katie's quite an expert in curriculum development, and Sharon's very good at the back end kinds of stuff to market this and all. So we've been able to put this class together and graduate our first class just on Thursday night. And we got another class starting in July, and we'll graduate another full class in August.
That's fantastic.
Our goal is to to train 1,000 leaders in the next 10 years. 1,000 people come through this course. And I think if we had 1,000 people trained in how to deal with conflict, how to organize, how to finance, how to make sure finances are taken care of appropriately, and thing after thing, we spend 8 sessions teaching all these things. If we had 1,000 people speaking that language, talking about the techniques that we train, and the methods and the ethics, what would that do to the entire movement if we had people all speaking the same language and holding each other accountable to good leadership practices rather than founder leader, like Seth mentioned, having a founder leader dictate everything. When you know good and well, you need a team of people to really develop an organization, develop a group. One person can't do it all. And if they are trying to do it all, they're making a big mistake.
Yeah. Well, and, for a lot of us, I think something that can be really a really helpful part of this is even for those of us where we did serve in leadership positions, we were on boards, we were, maybe taught classes, whatever it may be, right? Is then all of a sudden, then you're on the secular side of things. You're after faith. You're working with these secular orgs and secular leadership opportunities or whatnot and structures. And you might find yourself going, because I know I've been in the situation where I'm on the board for our local humanist community. And I'm like, oh yeah. Well, this is how we do things on a board. I'm going back to my old default. And then I'm thinking through, well, wait a minute, how much of how boards are supposed to work, or how healthy boards are supposed to work, or the healthy way for boards to do things and for leadership to do things, where I've got that default in my head of what health looks like. And then I catch myself and I realize all of this is shaped by what used to be my theology. All
Yep.
of that was
Yep.
shaped by what used to be my understanding of God's call on how things should be done. And so for a lot of us, those of us, I mean, I started my first nonprofit when I was 16 years old, but it was steeped in theology. So for a lot of us who have been leaders like our entire lives, we still need to take an opportunity to press pause, to reset, to say, am I now 30 years later doing it what's truly the most helpful way? And I think that's where I see, in addition to all of the other ways that this can be helpful, that's an additional way. Do you see
Yeah.
much of that with folks coming in where they're saying, wait a minute, my default is to do things, or this is just the way it should be done, where even as atheist leaders, they're still reverting back to their old theistic paradigms? Do you see much of that, or is that not so much a thing?
That is like one of the key things that happens to people as they go through the course. They start getting in touch with some of their religious ideas about leadership that they didn't even know they had. And I mean, you'll see the aha on their face when that is destructive, or that is not very team oriented, because we really, my entire career, I wrote 2 books on organizational development that focused on how you develop teams in an organization, and we put a lot of emphasis in the training on how to develop a team to develop this humanist group or whatever. And they don't teach good team-based approaches in churches. Ultimately, it comes down to, does the preacher like it or not, or is the leader going to go along with it? But a really good team, I mean, that's what I love about our board at Recovering from Religion. It is a crackerjack team, and we get shit done. And we just had 2 hugely successful raisers this year, and it's largely because of our team. It's not because of me. It's not because of Gail. Because we got a team of people that do the things they say they're going to do, and we deal with conflict appropriately. We have conflict. I mean, if we didn't, I'd be suspicious. But yeah, we see that a lot, Drew. It's a hidden impact that people don't realize until they get into a good training that says, nope, that's probably not the best way for humans to be human in a system.
Yeah. Well, hey, Daryl, you so generously shared with us in advance we might have, folks, by the way, we might have had a little bit of a heads up that Dr. O was planning to call in. And you so generously shared a photo for us to share of this first class of graduates. Let's go ahead and put that up.
Sure.
Some familiar faces there. I know I see at least one person who's going to be in the co-host chair here coming up in the weeks ahead. But what a great crew to gather all together in one space. It must have been a lot of fun.
It was. We had a great time. And that's not everybody. Not everybody was there for the picture. But yeah, we had some great time there. Patrick, you may know Patrick there. He's head of NanoCon, and he went through the whole training, and it was fun. It's fun to see the leaders like Patrick in the class or Sean, because they come with real experience as leaders in the humanist world. And as they go through the class, they start realizing, okay, here's some ways I can improve my leadership skills. Here's a technique. We have very specific techniques that we teach. We give 2 things in this course. We give a philosophy of leadership, a humanistic philosophy of leadership, and we give techniques that work to create better and stronger organizations. Some of these techniques are really simple, but if you have a technique and no philosophy, that can lead you astray. Mm-hmm. If you have the greatest techniques in the world and no philosophy, it's not going to help you grow your group. And if you have the best philosophy and no techniques, you're not going to grow either. You need a guiding presence of humanistic. We call it humanistic leadership, and that's our philosophy. And then within that, we have a number of things we teach every week. There's homework. We give pre-readings. People come to the class prepared because they had to read 20 pages before they got there, dealing with some of the very specific techniques we're going to be teaching. Techniques like, how do you make consensus decisions? How do you deal with conflict? How do you tell if you're properly leading a meeting or not? I see so many organizations have 2-hour board meetings and nothing gets done, or a 1-hour meeting goes into 3 hours and nothing gets done. We have techniques that leadership can use to guarantee you're going to have an effective meeting that's going to come out with a list of things that we are going to commit to as a team, and we're not going to rely upon one person to get it all done. Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir here.
No, you're fantastic. And I'm just so glad that you called in to share with us, Daryl. And Seth, you have any other thoughts here? I mean, such good stuff Daryl's sharing.
No, I think another challenge one thing about having non-religious people, like the nuns, is that many, because they are not engaged with religion, are simply not interested in the discussions about religion, about atheism, agnosticism, state church separation, what is humanism, what is secularism. And so I don't know how interested those people are going to be about being a part of something like that. But I do know that a lot of people who have come out of a support structure, which is religion, are desperate to find a net to fall into. And I disagree that community and joining together to pursue like interests and to make friends and to have communal music and to set goals and achieve them and to do life, although I don't like to say it that way because it makes me throw up in my mouth. It takes me back to my church days, but you get it. We like to say that, well, that's religious. Well, religion does it well. It's human. And I think we need to take that back and stop apologizing for being groups, being together, being stronger together, being communities. And so all my best, Daryl, and we'll help you signal boosting out there.
Great. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I won't hold you guys up any longer. But thanks for letting me come on here.
Brother. Good to hear your voice.
All right.
Thanks,
okay.
brother. Talk to you later.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah. Great call. Great work. Daryl's just fantastic, isn't he?
You know, I've really beat this drum over the past 10 years where people leave the church and they are not going to join. They're not going to go to a Sunday Oasis. They're not going to go to a humanist convention. They're not going to be a part of this group or that group because I think they feel it surrenders your individuality in some way. I am not going to be part of a flock again. They burned me once. I'm an independent thinker. I'm going to go my own way. And the difference between a fundy, certainly religious group and a free thought group or a humanist group, et cetera, is that we're not sitting around being, preaching out of a holy book. It's more of an exchange of ideas, being able to challenge each other, being able to ask questions. If you find the answer, challenge that, ask more questions, learn things. But, against the scourge of Christian nationalism, the steamroller of oppression that we've seen, which is religiously motivated, I can be one guy standing in front of the steamroller throwing a pebble, or we can be an army of people who have joined forces together to stop this steamroller, and we're more effective together. That's an unpopular reality with some people, but I don't think it should be. I think doing it together, I think coming together, being a part of a community makes things better for almost all of us. We need to stop apologizing for wanting it and for doing it. That's my 2 cents anyway.
Absolutely. Well, and I love you're starting to see more and more orgs where the purpose of the org is to support and unite other orgs and to help us work together, such as with Secular Rising. And there's been some other ones over the years. And I love that. That really excites me that groups would come along and say, you know what, the purpose of our existence is helping make other groups stronger and work together more efficiently and effectively because we're all in this together. And I love it. I love it. But you'll also see, when you talk about the common, almost a repelling away, a repulsion from, after leaving call it organized religion after leaving the faith and saying, no, I don't need any of that. I'll be fine on my own. I mean, you think now we see less and less distinction between the different humanist groups in some ways, I think. But when you think of kind of what I'm going to refer to as the old classification of religious humanism, or what's been rebranded as congregational humanism, that versus secular humanism, it kind of all stems back to that. And now over the years, I think we've kind of found our way back to each other in some ways. But so like religious humanism or congregational humanism, it was always non-theistic. It never meant theistic humanism. That was never what it referred to as. But it was this idea that, okay, we gather on Sunday mornings or we gather at some point in a week. We're congregationally based. And then you had others coming away saying, no. Those mid-century 20th century folks saying, no, we're fine on our own. We don't need to gather in community. That sounds so religious. We're fine being secular humanists. And now I think the beautiful thing over the last 10, 20 years, especially 10, is finding where the word secular versus congregational human, it almost doesn't mean anything. We're all seeing the need for community. We might do it in different ways, but we're all seeing the need to come together, to live a healthier humanity, to build a better world. And I just think it's fascinating to see how some of those historical differences have pushed us in different ways that maybe in some ways we're maybe beginning to overcome. I don't know, but it's hopeful. It gives me hope to see that. Hey, we have, a super chat, folks. This one was from a while back, but I missed it. But hey, David Bickett, I think I'm reading it correctly. Q7P, is that right? David Bickett, either way, thank you for your $9.99 super chat, $9.99. Thank you so much, fam. Thank you for the support. We appreciate you having you in the chat. All right, folks, once again, the lines are open and we'd love for you to call in and take your opportunity to talk with the one and only Seth Andrews, and I would love to join the conversation as well. Any and all boots on the ground challenges that you might be facing as you navigate life after faith. We want to hear from you. We want to partner with you, even if just for these few brief moments, to help you think through, talk through, work through any of the challenges you might be facing as you navigate life after faith, which, because I like to say the subject matter of life after faith is about as broad as life itself, because it involves all of life itself as we find our way through. But yeah, the lines are open. That said, though, Seth, Mr. Andrews, did they ever use the term DJ as like a title? DJ Andrews? I don't know.
No. And, there are some people who were averse to it. Disc jockey was kind of reductive, or it sounded like you were at a rave playing tunes. Some people said radio announcer and that kind of thing. But, I don't.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fond memories from that. It's funny. I came into the movement in a time when we didn't have a lot of storyteller communicators. We had a lot of great minds. Back in 2008, 2009, there were a lot of smart PhD types and they were giving out good information, but it wasn't packaged so that most people could play along. There weren't a lot of conversations going on.
Yeah.
I remember I would scroll through YouTube and you'd see a lecture hall and somebody put the camera on the back wall and the speaker looks like a little tiny blip and he's poorly mic'd and they hadn't white balanced the camera, so his skin looks green. And so it's 4 hours of power in some esoteric, very deep weeds of science or whatever. And I thought, well, I'm not a super smart dude. I don't have a PhD. I'm not one of those great minds. What do I bring to the table? Well, what about an every guy who can string a few sentences together and can tell stories and can maybe translate some of this for people like me? And so when I launched the YouTube page in 2009 and the podcast in 2010, there seemed to be a need for that. And I'm very proud of that. I'm approaching 900 podcasts over the last however many, 16 years. And I don't think we change the world with data. We're not going to change minds with data unless that data is part of a story. People respond to stories. Human stories, the story of cosmology, the story of our evolved primate selves, the stories that bring a lot of this to life. And yes, that involves our emotion. Now, I've talked to a lot of atheists, especially those who've been burned or manipulated emotionally by the church. And they're like, no one's going to manipulate me. I'm not going to be emotional about this. And I always say, good luck with that. Good luck. Not only is it wrong, not only will you not be able to be you're going to be an emotion. You are a primate. But I think that emotion is critical in these conversations. It's an important part of being human. The difference is the storyteller, documentary filmmaker Ken Burns once said it this way. He said, all storytelling is manipulation. The difference is I'm not doing it disingenuously. When I play emotive music, when I pause in the middle of a paragraph, when I inflect a certain way, I want you to feel something about what we're thinking about. But I'm not trying to lie to you. I'm not trying to cheat you. I'm not trying to deceive you. I simply want to activate all the senses as we take the journey together. We as a movement have gotten better about that over the years, but I think we could do a lot better than we are currently doing. Take it even further. It's okay to feel something about the things we think about. The difference is emotion's not leading the train, but it's certainly part of the train. And I always try to draw a circle around that. Stop apologizing for being a human being.
Oh, it's funny how human being a human feels and how messy that humanity can be. Hey, I do just want to highlight here, we do have another super chat. Felicia by nature. Let's see, I'm going to make my screen even bigger. Y'all know I can't see anything, it seems. $5 for the Atheist Good Hair Crew. Atheist hair better than theist hair facts. Okay, well, you know, Seth, we never get that kind of complimentary content.
True story, dude. I knew a guy who worked in our building. He was a traveling evangelist. He bought hairspray by the case. If he would have fallen down, his hair would have busted off. He would have snapped it. But we would get these shipments to the building because he had a suite in our building, and he ordered hairspray by the case. It was he looked everything like you are picturing in your mind right now. Is awesome.
That's fantastic. Well, hey, Seth, you know, as folks call in, the lines are open. Feel free to chat, share. I'm curious about this question. What's everyone's experience? Call in about it if you'd like. What's everyone's experience after leaving the faith? Does life feel more hopeful now that we're free of the bullshit? Or does it kind of sometimes almost feel more hopeless because we feel the reality of life's chaos around us, the world's chaos around us? What are your thoughts? More hopeful or more hopeless? And crew, if you see anything coming through in the chat, you know I'm terrible at that, so help me throw it up on the screen here to make sure we see it. Seth, what are your thoughts? Do you have do you feel the weight of a godless world, or does it continue to feel super freeing? What are your thoughts?
In my own life, I don't lead with the word hope. Yeah. I'm more centered. I'm more comfortable in my own skin. I feel like I found my own voice. I'm living an authentic life. That is a gift. And it's a place that many people never get, and I'm so grateful. Is it harder when you don't say, well, somebody's in control? Is it hard to think that the people I care the most about, when they die, I won't ever see them again? Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. Is it messy to think that there's not some, I don't know, cosmic blueprint that's going to tie all the loose ends together and make the nonsensical sensible and all that? Yeah, I mean, I get that. But there's a satisfaction that comes with rooting yourself in the real world, being able to live maybe a harder reality instead of the happy fantasy, knowing that you are participating in the world as it is. There's a satisfaction. Do I feel hope? Well, I'm not exactly hopeful these days. You know, George Carlin famously said, if you scratch a cynic, you'll find a frustrated idealist. And I will say that a man in his 50s here, seeing what I've seen, doing what I've done for so long, I'm a frustrated idealist. I used to have wider eyes and greater hopes about the future. These days, I don't know. I don't know if the nation I live in is going to survive. I have become tremendously discouraged about how people do and do not think, about the rise, or at least the validation of bigotry and cruelty in a nation that I thought was better than that, and the zealotry that is just rampant. It is a cancer, and it's all around me, and I've struggled with that in my own life. I'm so satisfied. I would never go back into the faith. I'm centered. Do I feel hopeful? You know, not really. You know, but I want to have hope, and I'm certainly going to continue to work. What are we going to do? Give up and go home? Right? I think we got to all keep kicking together to try to build the world that we want to live in, and we can do so without resorting to mythology, superstition, dogma, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I both hear the concerns that folks have as well as have them my own, right? I mean, I can identify with how, I mean, back in the 90s, I was fully in the faith all through the 90s and through all of the aughts as well. And the world it felt like it was in shambles, and yet God's got it. I don't understand, but God's got it. And I do feel that, you know, there can be that absence of, wow, it feels so much more chaotic now that there's not a God holding everything in check. That said, though, I agree with everything you're saying, right? In that, on the one hand, it is what it is, but how can we nonetheless live in the real world? Live in the real world. I hate the phrase it is what it is, but sometimes I can't think of a better one either. But yeah, how can we make the most of it? And maybe hope was such a fuzzy, weird, not real thing anyway. We were just duped into it. How now, though, can we use what we have, make the most of what we have access to, and do what we can to live a healthier humanity and build a better world, even if we can't single-handedly solve it all, as if we were God themselves.
You know what's weird is that I used to fear death when I was a believer. When I believed in heaven, we used to talk about it, but it was always in the abstract. Oh, it's going to be beautiful, and there's color, and there's mansions and streets of gold, and maybe the family dog, and it's going to be happy, happy, joy, joy. But it was always kind of out there. It was always in the abstract. But I was terrified of dying. And I wonder if it's because heaven didn't ever really feel real enough. Or maybe the heaven they were describing was so vanilla that living here actually sounded a lot better. I mean, here I get the spectrum, I get connection, I feel it. You know, it feels like it's got some weight on it.
Yeah.
And when I left the faith and I realized that there's no evidence for a life 2.0 and that this is almost certainly a finite existence, I get a few decades and it's gone and the universe doesn't care, blah, blah, blah. Not a fan of dying. You know, I don't want to wither. I don't want to go through all that. You know, I'd like that to be a little more, you know, brief and peaceful, and I'd like a good run. But was it Twain who said, you know, I hadn't existed for billions of years before now, and I didn't suffer the slightest inconvenience by it. Mm-hmm. So the idea of non-existence for me, it doesn't bother me. And I feel more of a privilege of drawing breath, of feeling the moments, the sun on my face, and being able to love and live on my own terms. It means more outside of religion. And I would have never expected that. If you had gone back in a time machine and told the religious Seth that would be the case, I would have called you a liar, but it's absolutely true.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The agency we have, the autonomy we have. Before we were just walking imitation Jesus zombies, right? So right, follow in his footsteps, right? We are him and nothing more, but vessels of the Lord. where now we actually have agency. We can build life on our own terms. We can make meaning in the midst of it all. But that it is fascinating, like you say, this idea of believing in heaven and yet being terrified of leaving this life, or whatever you want to call it. It makes me think of my grandfather, who was the greatest influence on my faith. And I forget if I've shared the story here yet or not. I don't think I have. But my grandfather, he was the greatest influence on my faith. But he at the age of like 31 had his first heart attack, and went on over the next 50 years to have, I think, 7 or 8, had 5 quadruple bypasses plus a bunch more. He had one of those heart pumps that Dick Cheney had so famously. And there were several times where we were told he's not going to make it through this one. He's died. Go pay your goodbyes. And I'm in high school. I'm a high school student, junior or senior or something. We said goodbye. I was so excited for him. At this point, I was already a teenage preacher. And I was so excited. Grandpa's finally going to get to go to heaven. I'm so excited. And I say goodbye. He makes it out alive. He comes back. He's at home. And I asked him, I said, so what's it like knowing you're going to die soon? That must be so exciting. And he said to me, Andy, they called me Andy back then. He said, Andy, I don't want to die. No matter how much Jesus or the Bible tells me I should look forward to life in heaven, I don't want to die. I can't fathom it. And it blew me away. It was a little different than my personal experience, but it blew me away that you could look forward to heaven and yet not want to, like, can we end it now, please? But I think that's really common. And what you're describing as well, Seth, I think is probably the experience of most Christians and theists in general, where no matter what we believe up here, it's hard to really let go and want it. Yeah.
You see the culture that says, come Lord Jesus. And they talk all the time and preach about the rapture, the trumpet shall sound and the dead in Christ shall raise up and we will meet him in the air and it's going to be amazing. These same people spend all of their energies trying to prevent the end times. They are terrified. Like, the book of Revelation has to come to pass in order for heaven to happen. And yet, if you look, especially at the American Christian, they flip out whenever they see anything that they interpret as an end time prophecy fulfilled or a sign or whatever. Why are they trying to prevent what is a foregone conclusion and must happen so that they can meet their paradise in eternity? Plus, the Bible says no weapon formed against them shall prosper. Not a sparrow will fall from the sky apart from their Father's care. The hairs on your head are numbered, right? And these divinely protected believers live their lives in absolute fear. They're always signing for this or that insurance. They installed their security cameras. They got gun safes loaded with firearms. They are terrified people. And I think this doesn't sound like confidence to me. It sounds like professed confidence. But the truth is, there's a lot of fear that's embedded in these supposed divine protection sermons that we hear in the Christian faith.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's all. It's amassing riches. It's as much as everybody's different. But for a lot of folks, it seems the majority, at least the vocal majority of Christian faith havers or faith pretenders or whatever the hell they are, just amassing safeguards, whether it's financial safeguards, whether it's living in the right neighborhood, whatever it is, in order to build up, protect themselves, guard their own. It's us against everybody else in the world. And it's really disheartening, right? Because then, a thought I'm having just now is how much of that fear then, despite our best intentions, do we carry over into our, call it atheism, life after faith? Then we carry that over, right? But now so then I suppose that's the question is, I'd be interested to hear from folks and contrast those who where they left the faith and found less fear because they're free of all the things that scared them? Or is it really just more fear? Because now, on top of all the fears that we had embedded before, now there's all the fears of everything we were told to fear about atheism, and now we're living in it. Obviously, all of this is so individualized and nobody's exactly the same, but it's just fears on fears and fears. And it seems like whether you stay in the faith or not, the faith does everything it can to set you up for failure.
I can only speak to my own experience. When you leave a fundamentalist Christianity, and the devil is not imbued in everything, everything becomes less scary, or most things. So I come out of the faith, and then there goes the fact that so-and-so is perverse and away from God's plan. And this is not guided by the Bible. And this is not how you should discipline your kids because it said so in the Old Testament. And this is not how you should treat gay people because we've discarded all of the gay and the homophobia in the Bible. And this is how I feel more about the role of women in the world. And you just go point by point. So I come out of the faith, but it took me a few years to deprogram everything else. So I'm like, all right, well, now that I'm not part of a fundamental, now that I'm not operating as to what I was preached and taught to do, what do I think? And so I had to go back, and I'm like, well, how do I feel about gay people? How do I feel about reproductive rights? How do I feel about gay marriage? How do I feel about the Second Amendment and the NRA and guns in general? How do I feel about right to die issues? How do I feel about foreign policy, American exceptionalism, our role in the world, humanity as a whole? Point by point by point by point, and the dominoes fell. And once you're not afraid of those icky sodomites, and once you're not yelling at people for murdering babies because you don't understand what reproductive choice is, and once you're not worried about the people who are going to sneak over the border to steal everything you have and kidnap your children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once the monster is no longer in the closet, it becomes a liberating moment. You get to realize that we are all brothers and sisters on this planet. And while there are some freaking scary people out there, a lot of the people that I was constantly warned about were beautiful. They're just beautiful people. And I hadn't given them a chance. I had vilified, I'd othered, I dehumanized them. And outside of the faith, I got to say, oh my God, you're different than me. And it's awesome. And to embrace the wide, wild spectrum of humanity, dogma free, I'm less afraid, at least in that way, in my own life.
Now, how long did it take you to make that shift?
Well, I was not just an evangelical Christian, but I was a Fox News conservative. And it's funny because it took me, one had to fall before I began to re-examine the other. I was that guy. I was like, big government bad. And which is hugely reductive. I mean, it's not that there's not massive waste in government, but I mean, I was one of those private sector, freedom, rugged individuality. And if you fail or you're really working hard enough, and I didn't have a lot of compassion. It's funny. A lot of that stuff, it gets baked in, and it takes a long time for you to recognize it and try to work that stuff out of your system. And some people were very patient with me. And it was, if you were to meet me in 2008, you would have met in some ways a very different person, a work in progress. And I just, for me, realized that humanist values are almost always more liberal values. Like the right of a woman to choose what happens to her body that's a liberal value. And to be able to see state-church separation in a secular government. I mean, we're not hearing that from the right. That's more of a liberal value. Responsible gun legislation. Hell, I've got a couple of pistols here in a safe. I target, shoot. My guns are not my identity. Honestly, I'd surrender them if the government asked me to. It's not like, I love the gun culture where they have linked it to their identity. And they think that if for some reason The government turned its billion-dollar blitzkrieg of military technology on everyday citizens. They could go to their gun safe and have a prayer against the laser-guided bombs coming in.
Right.
I mean, it was just it took a few years, and but ultimately, I'm complex. I've got hopefully a nuanced approach. I'm trying to sharpen my knives every day to figure out, do I have the best idea? But once I let go of religion, I was able to really tap into what is humanism and what is it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I had a similar trajectory, though. I was, by the time I was pastoring, I was more of a progressive evangelical, if that isn't a complete oxymoron.
No,
I
no,
was
no, it
never a real
totally is.
fundamentalist, but I was more like, if by chance you're familiar with the emerging church, that's more the kind of evangelical minister I was. But that said, though, it was a similar trajectory. It took me about 2 years. For about 2 years, I was like, I don't know what the fuck is up, down, east, or west. I don't know what's right. But then 2 years later, I kind of settled into humanism more or less, and fear hasn't really driven me, but I know for a lot of folks it does. Here we have another super chat. Bob-tailed trucker 2521, $5. Drop a like. That is an excellent question, Bob-tailed trucker. Folks, if you haven't dropped a like yet, please don't wait for us to ask you to do it at the end. Go ahead and do it now. Do it for Seth. Do it for the gods of secularism above. Do it for Mr. Andrews, DJ Andrews. Okay. And yeah, hit subscribe. We would love for all of that you're getting the flashes on the screen for. Yes, please do that. We are going to shift to the bullshit Bible verse of the week here in just a moment, but I just want to throw out a couple things here real quick, wrapping up this fantastic conversation. I know for things that helped me feel more hopeful this side of faith, things like what we've talked on, finding a sense of personal agency. What can we control? We can't control climate change. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that are freaking out over climate change, and God's not going to stop it. We can't control everything. Try to focus on what we can. We can focus on our own actions. We can focus on our own lifestyle. We can focus on rattling the cages of corporate America and rattling the cages of our legislators to get them to give a fuck about things like climate change that we can't control individually. But even then we can focus on what we can do. We can build local communications. Okay. We can't control global affairs, but we can pour into the other humans around us in positive ways, and even in ways that extend to at least a few humans on the other side of the globe. We can engage in direct action. We can engage in political action, community organizing, protests, mutual aid. Look for a need and try to fill it. We could go on and on and on. I will throw one more here in this smattering smorgasbord of things to do. Look for voices to fill the space around you. Look for informative voices. Look for optimistic voices. Look for encouraging voices. And this isn't meant to just be a cheap promo or anything like that. Honestly, Seth, for folks that are just meeting Seth for the first time, seriously, check out his platform. There's a reason why so many people know his voice, and because it's a voice that helps in things like this. But look for voices, a variety of them, a smorgasbord, and use those to help encourage you, even when times do feel particularly difficult these days, when we turn on the news, then flip over and turn on some good podcast or open a good book, something like that. But there is so much out there than we can do, even if we don't have full control of everything. Let's see. Okay, let's jump to a little thing we like to call bullshit Bible verse of the week. Here we go. Bullshit Bible verse of the week coming at us. Mark chapter 11, verses 23 through 24. It's already on the board in front of us. Those who can read it. And these signs. Okay. Mr. Seth, I'm curious if you were from a church that preached such a gospel as this. And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name, they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their heads. And when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them at all. They will place their hands on sick people and they will get well. Oh, what beautiful, blessed words, Seth. What do you think? Is this a verse you ever put into practice?
Well, I sort of came from 31 flavors. My dad was ex-Lutheran, went to a Baptist school. My mom was a Pentecostal, and that culture did have the manifestation of the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost, the speaking in other tongues, usually was just babbling, but it was considered sacred, and it was considered near blasphemy to question it or criticize it. But, it was none of the churches I went ever did any like drink something toxic, and certainly not snakes. It's funny, though. In the first chapter, I think, or the second of a book that I published 10 years ago called Sacred Cows, I actually have a whole chapter which talks about snake handling churches. And so there are churches, and most of them are like in Tennessee and Arkansas and whatnot. And what's really sad is they abuse the animals, but they will drag these venomous snakes into Sunday churches, and they'll dance and throw them around their neck and hold them and swing them around and do all this stuff, because this is supposedly something that God commanded in the Bible. And as you would expect, people get bitten, people get sick, and people, including many of the senior pastors, die because after they're bitten, they're still holding on to their healing faith. They don't get medical attention and they croak. And so I think I actually had a body count. I listed like, boom, they died, boom, they died, boom, they lost a finger, boom, the year later they died. And, so I researched it, read it, I've seen it, heard about it. Well, we only did the speaking in tongues, and I never did myself. I was never comfortable with it. Wasn't my thing. I was suspicious of it. I was more of the Baptist type of Christians. But yeah, I'm familiar with the scripture for sure.
Yeah, snake handling, wasn't my thing either. Actually, the slightly more mainstream, maybe more realistic, I don't know if that's the phrase, of evangelicalism, we actually looked at how the vast majority of New Testament manuscripts didn't include these verses at all. And so it was our position that this was a later addition and not actually part of God's holy word. So that gave us an easy out, I guess.
Probably saved some lives too. No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, so we should probably clarify, this is not a trustworthy source, kids. So don't try this at home. Okay. Don't try this at home. But no, when I read that chapter in this book that you mentioned, yeah, good stuff. So all that said, survey says Mark 16, 17, 18 is bullshit. All right. Bullshit it is. Let's see. So we are just okay. So Seth, looks like we have a caller who wants to take just a couple minutes. I know we're wrapping up here. We're winding down. Wants to take a couple moments to follow up possibly on what Dr. Ray was saying earlier. Think that sounds cool? Should we go ahead and
I'm in.
Chat? All right. So we have a call coming in from Karen. Pronouns are she, her, calling in from Pennsylvania. She's an atheist, but she wants to talk about, looks like, something on the subject of Byzantine faith, and maybe also following up then from Dr. Ray, talking about the Leadership Institute, pushing the big green button. And Karen,
Hi.
you're on live with Seth and Drew. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm okay. A lot of the things when I listen to this channel don't really apply to people coming out of the Byzantine faith.
Yeah.
We're like, I mean, we came to America under the Soviet Union, and everything was just based on service. There's no name it, claim it. There is no like preaching hellfire, damnation. You don't go around proselytizing. It's service to your family, service to your community. So leaving the Byzantine faith isn't the same because you just find service somewhere else. If that makes sense. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's just, you're expected to live, you're expected to suffer, you're expected life is hard. And that's why we all stick together and help each other. And a lot of the stuff with evangelicals is just bizarre to me. So, but anyway, I was just going to say, it just always takes, there's a lot of Christian, I don't know, I guess sects or whatever, that I think that we kind of get lost in the loop. Because even evangelical Christians are crazy to people coming out of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for calling in. And if I'm hearing you right, you're saying a couple things, but one thing you're saying is that, if I'm hearing you right, that your transition out of the faith, if you want to call it that, was a little more smooth and seamless, a little easier because the emphasis was on faith, or was on service rather than theology. Is that right? Am I hearing you right?
Yeah. It was, I mean, you basically knew your, you know your basic prayers, you have your confession, you do things like that, but you hate to say it wasn't like all that God focused.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, I think
It
this
was
helps to
people
explain
focused.
why so much of the focus of shows like these is dealing with people who have come out of more of a fundamentalist faith, and they have the baggage that goes along with it, and many of them have been traumatized by it. So, I mean, if you come out of more of a, hey, let's do good for each other and let's do our best, and it's not all that God-focused kind of a vibe, well, that's not as critical because the trauma's not there and you're not wrestling with as much. You have a smoother transition. So I think that's one of the reasons, not to be exclusive, but it's one of the reasons I think that shows like this and others will reach out to people who just got their ass kicked and their deconstruction was really traumatic, and they kind of need a support system and some tools to navigate beyond. But I totally hear you, and I'm glad you escaped or transitioned, maybe is a better word. And I hope your life is good today for sure.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the things that, as far as people, to whatever your passion was or whatever you loved before, maybe that's why people don't join humanist groups, but it's because they have now decided to serve others through helping the homeless or through Doctors Without Borders or something that some people might, as we were raised, as if you're in your particular area, our Mennonites are here where I live, and we have the Amish and stuff like that. Maybe they're going and serving and doing humanistic things, but they're just not part of a humanistic group. They just
Totally
sublimate it instead of, But
there's an interesting statistic I just released on my channel, a presentation that was given by sociologist and secular study professor Dr. Phil Zuckerman about, are the religious more moral than non-religious people? And he was talking about, well, if you look at the church model, it is true that the religious are more charitable, but they have more opportunities. They get together, and then somebody's going to show up in the auditorium and say, hey, we're passing the plate for Bob, or hey, we're doing a big mission. So they just happen to be part of the infrastructure. But when it comes to individual giving to charity, secular people actually do better. And the religious give less when a church is not involved and they're just doing it independently. And I found that was interesting. And that's a good point that you raised, being able to do it for goodness sake, right?
Absolutely.
Good for goodness sake. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for calling in, Karen. No, that's really, and I think she just left. Yeah. No, I love this call. And I think that she brought up some great points. And certainly, Karen, if you're still listening, and others who are watching, that's one reason, Seth, why we always want to make sure that we're not characterizing or boxing all Christians into the same lump, right? Where they're all a little, I mean, there's 70 different variations of Baptist just in the United States alone. And some of them are hyper fundamentalist, and others of them are super progressive and don't even believe that the Bible is actually literally God's selected word. So it varies. And yeah, we're speaking primarily to those who have similar experiences to our own, but to anyone who would find it helpful. Because yeah, the more fundamentalist we tend to be, the more traumas we have and the more we have to work through. Those of us like myself, I'm a little more in the middle. I was evangelical, but I was a little more leftward. And so my experience has been a lot easier than a lot of folks, but we can all work together. We can all learn from each other, and maybe we can all continue to learn from others as well. And so that's what this show, what we want it to be about, even as we're growing. So, yeah. And Seth, you helped us do that tonight. So thank you, brother. Let's see. We do have some thanks. We want to thank our supporters and do some previews and some announcements and some things like that. I do want to mention real quick just a little bit of an awareness campaign. Okay, folks, I have something to show y'all, because if y'all didn't catch it before, we have shall we call it a relic that was unearthed. See, at one of the iterations of this show, when we were preparing to launch it months back, at one point we were thinking we might launch it on Wednesday, April 1st. We ended up launching it on Wednesday, April 8th. But at one point we were thinking we might launch it on Wednesday, April 1st, which happens to be a holiday of note to some folks. And so we had prepared for that. We had drawn together Wes, the incredible leader here behind the scenes at Skeptic Haven, had taken time in advance of this potential episode, which never happened, drawing together several artifacts, helping verify and prove the reality of atheism. And but ultimately we realized we couldn't use it because, well, April Fool's Day is April Fool's Day. We can't show real relics on April Fool's Day. That doesn't make any sense. But the chief relic of them all, proving that atheism is real. We can go ahead and put that on the screen here. It is the Lord Master Seth Andrews' face on toast. And so we don't know where this came out. Apparently it was someplace deep in the outback of Australia where this piece of toast was unearthed, proving the reality of Seth. We're just getting to show it now since we delayed the beginning of the show, but I think it's turned up other places along the way. So I just want to know, how does it feel knowing that you are the embodiment of godlessness itself?
Signs and wonders, my son. Signs and wonders. I do wish if there was a deity, he would spend less time appearing on food items and, making statues cry and making rainbows and finding parking spaces and kind of help us out with the really important stuff. But I like to have a little fun with that. I just finished a presentation and released it about the American perception of Jesus. It's called Died, D-Y-E-D, Died and Risen, The Strange Story of White Jesus. And I show an image like that near the end where I'm like, well, if I had made a God in my own image. But it's an interesting look at how throughout history our gods look like us. They validate us. They have our characteristics. And so it becomes more and more apparent that we weren't made in God's image, but gods were made in ours. And so that's just a nice twist on that. That made me laugh. Funny stuff. So,
yeah, funny stuff. Good stuff. Hopefully we're having fun living and laughing in the real world, folks. Okay, so many thanks for tonight and for this show. As always, we want to thank our Skeptic Haven, our Patreon patrons. As always, Karen Butcher, Logan Fisher, Alan McLeod, Ryan, Dan D, The Bible Says What, Sunny Shell, Phil Calderon, Victor, and of course, our very own Kelly King. We also, so many YouTube members. Tonight, we want to feature a handful of them. P2 Traber, Andy Gambino, Alone Dro, Surrender Monkey, and Ms. Lemon 42. Thank you all of you for your, and even those that we didn't mention tonight. Thank you for your incredible financial support. Thank you again for each of our super chatters. We literally could not do this without you. As far as those who want to help participate and make this show take place and the entire channel and network beyond the financial support, we want to give a great big thanks and shout out to our incredible crew, all of whom are volunteers, every single one of us. Kelly King, Ember, Felicia, Bree Badger, Ember, Michael, Wes, and others. Thank you so much for all of your work, both this evening and throughout the weeks and months. And if you would like to join the crew, then please come help us navigate the chaos. Would you please? Okay. Send us an email, skeptichaven@gmail.com, and we can set up a time for you to meet with our production team to see how you best might help us navigate the chaos. We would invite you back tomorrow, of course, back to Skeptic Haven for Critical Call, 7 p.m. Central Time every Thursday night with AJ Ruley. And this week, AJ's guest is Ember of Better Than Ember, discussing, do we even need a Pride Month? I mean, do we? I don't know. Maybe we do. Tune in. Join them tomorrow night. Seth, what do you got going on this week, brother? Anything you want to highlight for this week ahead or in general? Should be on our radar?
Well, I'm working on a conversation with Promise Backlund, who has released a new book called Gospel of Lies. We're going to talk about that. I'm getting ready to travel to Cincinnati in mid-July. I'm taking the stage with No Illusions of the Scathing Atheist on the 11th of July, and tickets are available for that. I'm doing the Ark Encounter protest in front of Ken Ham's $110 million paperweight. That's on the 12th of July, going to Sarnia. I've got Huntsville, Alabama for Rocket City Reason, some big stuff on the horizon. So, a lot of stuff happening, but you can always just find it on my website, SethAndrews.com. It's all right there. So
excellent. SethAndrews.com. And you'll find that in the show notes as well, folks. So yeah, Seth, you've always got so much going on. Always. Yeah, if y'all are ever looking for an opportunity to run into Seth Andrews, good news. There's always an opportunity to run into Seth Andrews. Oh, and I think we just got another super chat, if I'm seeing this correctly. Let's see, $20, another $20 from Bobtailed Trucker, 2521. Thanks again. He says, just a little donation for your efforts to spread the good word. There we go. I think really that's all because of you, Seth. So thank you for donating your time so that Bob would donate his dollars. Appreciate you.
Very kind.
Hey, we want to remind folks, it is our desire to develop a little slice, even just a slice of community here on this brand new show, whether it's through the chat, whether it's through calling in. Maybe we're looking for other ways to get involved throughout the week. We would invite each and every one of you, each and every one of us, to think through how we might both seek insights from others while also sharing the insights we've learned along the way with others as well, as we're all at different stages in our post-faith journeys, and we desperately need each other to continue finding our way through. I'd like to invite you to start thinking about next week's conversation and how you might call in. What might your questions be? Is there anything you might be facing along this conversation that you'd like to call in and share about or ask about or just walk through with us together? Next week, we have Ethan Michael joining us of Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist. And our featured conversation is going to be something kind of along that line, finding kindness for your still believing Christian friends and family, even when they piss you the fuck off, or something like that, okay? So start thinking now about what you might call in about. Keep in mind that even beyond that featured conversation, your boots on the ground challenges that you are facing in live reality, real time, those will always take priority over anything else. So yeah, call in, share a story, share whatever you'd like. But if you've got boots on the ground challenges, please, that's the whole point of this whole show. So call in, share with us, start thinking about it now. Well, Seth, we like to do a benediction on this show, is how we like to close out. I've got a benediction for us. Do you have any final words before the benediction?
No,
as we
except
go
for a
on
big
today?
thank you and an encouragement to everybody out there. Let's do the best we can to navigate this crazy world, commit ourselves to living an authentic life without apology, and try to stick together. That's all I got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, I'm going to raise my hands. I'm getting back in preacher mode, okay? May we always cherish the time we have. May we use our gifts to help others, our voices to speak for justice, and our lives to bring light to those around us. Folks, thank you so much. Have a great week. Stay around for a few final notes on the closing video, and we'll see you next week. Take care, y'all. Well, that's a wrap here, folks. Hey, do us a favor. Smash like, subscribe, leave a comment. Best ones get tattooed on our favorite guests. And if you're feeling extra lovey tonight, then please, Patreon, memberships, a good old share to the algorithm. All of these are great ways to help our team feel the love and keep the channel moving strong. But hey, one way or another, we'll see you right back here next time, fam, right here on Life After Faith, where we're finding our way together.